Most of what gets written about AI in reading instruction is about what AI can do for students: summarize the article, generate comprehension questions, rewrite the passage at a lower level. Pitch is almost always the same, that is, AI makes the text easier and that helps more students read it. Tim Shanahan, in a recent post on his blog, argues that almost all of this gets the question backwards. The more useful question isn't what AI can do for students, it's what AI can do for teachers. And his answer cuts against a lot of what is currently being marketed to schools. Hello and welcome to another episode of AI in the Classroom Daily, a podcast helping educators make sense of AI without the hype. I'm Dan Cogan-Drew, and I use AI as a thinking partner in preparing each of these episodes because I think the best way to talk honestly about AI in education is to work with it openly. So today we're working through Shanahan's argument, testing it against a Newsela article, and ending with a framework that I think you'll be able to take in any conversation about AI and text complexity. So Shanahan's post has two halves. They're connected. First half is a direct critique of using AI to rewrite text for students. His argument is that the features of complex text, the long sentences, the embedded clauses, unfamiliar vocabulary, that's exactly what students need to learn to navigate. And when AI strips those features out to make the text easier, it also strips out the comprehension work that the student's supposed to do. So it's easier to read, but it's also less worth reading because the reading is no longer teaching the student how to read. In the second half of the post, Shanahan says AI does have a legitimate role in reading instruction, but the user is the teacher, not the student. He describes pasting a Rudyard Kipling story into ChatGPT and asking, what are the 5 most complex sentences in this text? Sentences that might confuse young readers. The AI gives him 5 sentences and explains why each one is hard. Shanahan then chooses which ones he wants to teach into based on what he wants his students to learn. To quote him, instead of using it to remove barriers to comprehension, use it to identify the barriers and then show students how to surmount them. So that's the flip he's doing. The AI is assistant to the teacher, not to the reader. I wanted to test what this actually looks like in practice. So I took a few articles from the Newsela library and I ran them through the same exercise that Shanahan describes. I want to walk you through some of what came back because the experience is more interesting than I expected and not entirely in the way that you might think. So as a quick clarification, I did this using Claude Opus 4.7. Now, the article I'm going to focus on was a piece from the Philadelphia Inquirer in February of this year about a New Jersey high school where students grow mushrooms and sell them to local restaurants. There's a little mix of civics and civic education and entrepreneurship and of course, science. It's a nice story, very typical kind of Newsela story. I asked the AI to identify the sentences most likely to challenge young readers and explain why. The top sentence it flagged for me was this one. In the classroom, Green teaches students in his biology and environmental science classes the fundamentals of a mushroom, the fleshy, spore-eating, fruity body of a fungus. The AI's analysis is pretty sharp here, pointed out the positive, the part after the comma modifying the mushroom, redefines a familiar word, mushroom, using 3 pieces of stacked technical vocabulary: fleshy, spore-bearing, fruiting body. And a student who reads this sentence is going to have to recognize that it's the noun phrase after the comma is renaming mushroom. It's not introducing something new. It's a grammatical move that most fluent adult readers handle automatically, but developing readers often miss and get thrown off. It's exactly the kind of barrier a teacher could read past without noticing. That is, most of us are going to see spore-bearing, fruiting body and adjust and keep reading, but a 7th grader won't. So the AI is surfacing something useful here. It's not smarter than the teacher, but it's doing analytical work that the teacher doesn't have time to do for every single text every day. And I think that's exactly Shanahan's point. Another one it flagged was later in the same article. Let me scroll down to that, where it talks about composting, quote, spent mushroom blocks, unquote. The AI pointed out that spent is polysemous. Most students' first association with the word is money or time, but that's not the way it's used here. And they may not understand that the same word has a different meaning in this context. That's a vocabulary moment or instance that's worth teaching into. So far, so good. All this is consistent with Shanahan's argument. But the AI also flagged things that when I looked at them carefully were probably not the actual comprehension barriers in a classroom. For example, it flagged a sentence about a school's farm-to-table operation and went into a long technical analysis of parallel structure and gapping constructions. It's not wrong, technically that's correct, but it's pretty unlikely that a teacher's going to stop a class on that particular sentence for that reason. The complexity it identified was more theoretical. It's visible to a linguist, and it's not as visible to the as an actual problem for, let's say, an 8th grade reader. So in this case, I think AI is a diagnostic assistant, but not really perfect diagnostician. The output is a starting list. It includes real barriers, but it also includes noise. And this is a common pattern that we see in AI. Even the work that I was doing preparing this episode, as in most cases, generates a lot of noise and I have to sift through it. So in this case, the teacher's job is to look at what AI surfaced and decide what's worth teaching into. That's triage, sorting that signal from the noise, and that is an act of professional judgment. We've talked a lot about this, and it's consistent with the pattern that this is a role that AI plays alongside the teacher, where the teacher's role cannot be automated, that sort of sorting signal from noise, because it depends upon information that the AI cannot have. The students, the goal, the lesson. So AI is not replacing the teacher's diagnostic eye. It's giving the teacher more to work with and more to sort through. That's a mixed blessing. The collaboration is real, but the teacher still is the one carrying the weight. That's a good thing, but it's a serious consideration. So let me close with a framework, because I think this is something teachers can take from Shanahan's piece and from the experience of trying this approach yourself. At Newsela, our content team has been thinking for a long time about the dimensions of text complexity that matter for student comprehension, not just sentence length and word frequency, which are what most readability formulas measure, but a broader set: organization and structure, attention to age and maturity, vocabulary load, background knowledge demands, cohesion, sentence structure, word and sentence variety, tension and interest, opportunities for inference. 11 of these dimensions in all. Our library is leveled by human editors working across all 11 dimensions. Now, I don't want to raise this just to talk about our product. I'm raising it because those 11 dimensions are a useful frame for evaluating any text and for evaluating what AI is and isn't good at, and what it does and what it doesn't do when it evaluates text. Some of those dimensions, sentence length, word frequency, sentence structure, are dimensions that AI handles reasonably well because they're measurable. Others, things like maturity, background knowledge, building tension, leaving room for inference, are dimensions where AI tends to struggle because they require judgments about students and purpose that the tool can't make on its own. Now, I also want to mention that we make an AI text leveler available on our platform, not because we think AI leveling is the right method, but so that teachers can paste in outside text and see for themselves what AI produces. We know that we haven't leveled every written word, and there are pieces of text that teachers want to level for the purpose of instruction and use with their students. We want them to be able to see what the AI produces and compare that to the quality of what our editors produce. We think the 11 dimensions are what we use to do that comparison, and rightfully so, and we want to make sure that they're available to you to do the same. Now, the point here, and this is where Shanahan and I think our editorial team land in the same place, is that text complexity isn't a single number. It's a set of features. Good instruction depends on a teacher who can see those features clearly enough to teach into them. AI can help with that. It can surface things a teacher might miss, but the teaching, the decision about what matters for these students in this lesson on this day is still the teacher's work. We've been talking a lot about pedagogical content knowledge in this show, and I think this is a return to that same theme, that there are aspects of a domain and awareness contextually of students' needs and the purpose of an assignment that a teacher brings to the table that the AI cannot possibly. And it has numerous times in this show demonstrated that it falls short in understanding the PCK, the pedagogical content knowledge of a particular domain. So I really want to hear from you on this. If you've tried AI as Shanahan describes, and if you haven't read his article, it just came out over the weekend, so I'd urge you to take a look. If you've tried it as a diagnostic assistant for your own preparation rather than as a tool for students, what did it surface that you hadn't noticed? What did it flag that wasn't the problem? And how did you sort through what was worth teaching from what wasn't? We're going to put links to everything I mentioned in the show notes so that you can go in and take a look for yourself. Please drop a comment, send a note, or share this episode with a colleague. And thanks as always for joining, and we'll see you on the next episode.